role that veterans play in entrepreneurship and actually giving us a venue to share our stories. Again, my name is Rich Foreman. I'm actually a Navy vet, and I actually describe myself as a serial entrepreneur. And I have two startups I'm working on. I'm working on a medical one, and I feel like everyone needs to have an AI startup, so I also have an AI startup as well. We have two panelists. We have Marcus Haney and Scott Holman, both Marine Corps veterans. I think you're a combat, I don't know if you're a combat vet, but combat engineer, and then you're actually a combat wounded vet, right?
Yeah.
So first of all, thank you for your service.
My pleasure.
And first thing, and by the way, we actually had two more people that were scheduled to be here, and they had to drop out. So we're going to have another veteran join. That's why we have the empty seat. So he'll join here as soon as he can. But I'd like to go ahead and have you introduce yourself and actually tell us what you did. What did you do in the service? What was your military experience?
Boy, you're taking me back, Rich. So I joined the Marine Corps and decided that the only place for me to go was the infantry. And at the time, a lot of wars were going on, and so decided to join as what we call an 0311 in the Marine Corps, infantry. But every Marine's a rifleman, they say. So I ended up doing 3 deployments. On my last deployment, as Rich alluded to, I took a 7.62 round to the right thigh. I got medevaced out of Afghanistan and ended up transitioning out of the military. And you want me to tell me what I do now? So now I run an organization that helps service members transition out of the military. We have the largest program in the nation. We're worldwide. We help roughly 10,000 service members transition out of the military every single year, help them with skills, confidence, and community to find success as they exit the military. Scott.
All right, thank you. My name is Scott Holman. I joined the Marine Corps back in 1982 when I was a 20-year-old kid, had nothing going on. My dad told me one day that he was disappointed in the person I became. I had a little bit of soul searching to do, and I realized he's right. I'm disappointed. So I thought, well, I need something, and I found it in the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 3 years. I was a 1371 combat engineer. I spent 3 years just doing construction work in the Marine Corps. There's a lot of projects that the Marine Corps needed built, and so they took all their engineers. So I certainly don't have the experience that these guys do in combat. It was rather peaceful back in the early 80s, but it was a good experience, and it made me a better person, and it was very effective. Right now, I'm a retired fire captain for Metro Fire down the street here in Sacramento. 33 years. So I kind of went from the military into another public service job. And right now I run a tech startup that builds wearable technology for firefighters that monitors their location, environmental conditions, toxic gas exposure, and their vital signs in real time. And this started because I've had a lot of friends and coworkers in the fire service die in the line of duty. And it's a very profound and personal loss, but it's a reminder of the risks they go through. So at the time, we thought, what does the fire service need? Took that entrepreneurial leap, and that's why I'm here, to tell you about my jump.
And since we're short on panelists, I'll bring up my experience. So I actually enlisted when I was 18, actually on my 18th birthday. I had no way to pay for school. I was actually planning to be a Navy corpsman. And then I also applied for an ROTC scholarship and academy appointment. And I actually did get it. I did actually get accepted at West Point, and I had a 4-year Navy scholarship. And just to date myself, Top Gun had just come out. So because of that, I went Navy. And I always tell people a year later, I'm like dry heaving into a bucket off the coast of Alaska. Like, I joined the wrong damn service. I'm gonna say something else. But what I finished, the way ROTC works is they pay for school, And then when you graduate, you could get commissioned and you have to serve 4 years. So I was a civil engineer corps officer. So Scott and I actually were in the same field. We were both combat engineers. I feel very fortunate because I never had to serve in combat. I just did a lot of training, got deployed to Puerto Rico, so nothing too exotic. So that's my experience. So actually, before I begin, is anybody out here a vet? Excellent. All right. So okay. So this I wasn't sure if I was gonna ask this question, but tell me about both of you. Each one. Can you tell about how your transition from military life to civilian life? What was that like?
Great question. I get the opportunity to have this conversation with transitioning service members every day because in my program, all my service members are active duty, transitioning into civilian life. And I run a program called the Skill Bridge program, which wasn't around for service members when I was getting out. And so it was challenging. I got out with a bullet in my leg in a wheelchair and trying to go figure out how to walk. So I had that going for me, which was an interesting time to say the least. But I think that when you're getting out of the military, you aren't necessarily set up for opportunities in which that align with what you want to do. Oftentimes, college is the near-term opportunity. You get the GI Bill, which is free college, as you alluded to. However, that is sometimes setting service members back, right? And so I didn't go to college. I went and got into the workforce, and I had to go put myself back in the trenches and decided I had to go learn something new. I wasn't a combat engineer, and I couldn't really walk that good, so I couldn't be a firefighter. They wouldn't accept me. And so I decided I was going to go learn how to sell stuff. I guess I'm a decent speaker. I can go talk to folks. And so I got ingrained into learning how to sell IT technology solutions and staffing with Rick Nelson, also another veteran. I took a chance and said, hey, I'll teach you how to run these ropes, which ultimately led me to what I do today along the way, little steps here and there. But transition out of the military is challenging. And for all of you that are out there, maybe on live stream, that are the audience that are in transition, you are not alone. And there's organizations like mine, Allegiant Vets. We do things like provide you opportunity to get credentialing with transition services, resume support, et cetera, along the way. And so just know that there's other people that have done it like you. And so reach out if you need somebody to talk to. Happy to help you, happy to network, happy to give you LinkedIn courses, whatever the case may be.
My transition was a little bit more simplified. It was the early 80s, and for me to get discharged, I had to go through medical, and I had to just follow this yellow line through the medical procedure. They signed my paperwork, they handed me my stuff, and it wasn't until I was at the airport headed for Oregon that I from North Carolina, I realized, okay, now what? So, like Marcus said, he's someone like Marcus back in those days would have been so good. It would have been terrific. I'm not saying I'm not bitter or disappointed or whatever, but when it came time, they go, oh, your time's up, you're out, and that was it. And so when I got back to Oregon, I worked for a construction crew as a laborer because I could carry a lot of lumber and I was pretty strong and in good shape, so I was pretty popular with them.
Still are.
And so, but I was a 23-year-old person, or 24 at the time, and still kind of wondering what to do. So, worked construction for a while, went back into restaurants. I got inspired by somebody, former Air Force, my brother, who encouraged me to look into public safety. I signed up, went through a lot of the training to get minimally qualified to be a firefighter, and didn't make the cut. Worked private ambulance here in the Sacramento area for a while. Right over here on the other side of the rail train tracks is Elvis Avenue, and there's an old station I drive by all the time. It's not an ambulance station anymore. So my EMT paramedic thing started right over here, as a matter of fact. But I found the fire service is very in line with the sort of things that I did in the military, and it was a good fit. So spent 30 years working that, and along the way became a better person and a father and a husband, and saw a lot of things that changed my life, and it was good. It was a good transition. It would have been way better if Marcus was there. So, you know.
Okay, and everybody tag Neil.
Let's go, Tag.
So there's here the joke: 2 squids and 2 jarheads in our bar.
He was an officer, so I did what he told me to do, and that's why I'm late.
All right. Good to see you, Tag. Good to see you.
All right, Tag. So we got to get the audience catch up to you. So tell us, introduce yourself and tell us about your military service or what you did in the military.
Yes, as I mentioned, I was an enlisted petty officer where Rich was an officer, so that's why I'm late. He
Don't
told me.
hold that against me, please.
My name is Tag Neal. I was in the U.S. Navy aboard the USS Incheon between the years 1993 and 95. We supported just after Black Hawk Down occurred. I think it was October 2nd through 6th in 93, and our ships out of Norfolk, Virginia went and supported that group that left in January. Very short time, very concentrated time at sea. I was a machinist mate, not by choice because I was a short timer. They had a 2-year opportunity to get the GI Bill. So yeah, that's I could answer a lot of things about the Navy, but you know.
All right. So the question to catch you up is, what was your transition from military life to civilian life like?
I arrived at Northern Arizona University in Flagstaff, where my perception was everybody was a hippie smoking weed, and I did not fit in. And I got straight A's the first semester, so something was really wrong. I was kind of isolated. They did not have the veteran branch, and I had just got denied in-state tuition, even though I had changed my address a year and a half before with the U.S. Navy. So I was now paying about $4,000 more per semester. So my GI Bill was going to get eaten up in the first year. My plans were kind of falling apart, and yeah, it was a learning growth semester. But the transition, I would say, I mean, I think a lot of people have had it a lot rougher. You know, I was at an American University up in Flagstaff on the mountain. I had my grandparents there in town, but at the same time, I felt it was really tough. Found a group of guys in a fraternity that were going to graduate, get good grades, be good people, and meet girls, and those priorities fit with mine. And then I stayed there and graduated, and the rest was history.
So, all right, and I, from my experience in the transition, I actually went through a military recruiter. I mean, not a military recruiter. These were recruiters that were, we were like junior military officers that had degrees, and they were selling us to like corporate companies. And so we went through like kind of a civilian boot camp where we had to learn how to interview and learn how to do our resume. So that's how I was able to get into my first corporate job. The one thing that I've seen, and they did a really good job of helping me prepare, to interview for corporate jobs. What I've seen, and I've seen a few military resumes, is that it's the ones that you have to make it civilian. I was looking at somebody's, and I've been in the military, and I looked at his resume. I had no idea. He was using lots of acronyms, and you have to do things like, instead of saying like, if you're a division head, or you need to say, or platoon commander, you need to say like department lead. Try to use civilian terms that people understand if you're going to make that transition. All right, so the next question I have for you guys, and we could just, actually, I'm going to go with you first because, I'm going to start with my original question. What was your first business? Like, and what inspired you to do your first business?
My very first business?
Yeah.
All right. Very first business, I was 16 and a half. And
Okay, let's start it from when you were civilian, from.
All right. Look,
When
people paid me to
you-
come pick up their cars. I was
No, that's actually good.
hustling, baby.
But I'm saying from after the military, what was your first business? So you basically were doing odd jobs, it sounds like, and you got back.
Yeah, I got back, and what I tell people is they need to start a plan as they transition out, because I did not. So don't do what I did. Create a plan and execute against the plan. So I came back and started tinkering around, and we were flipping houses, and so I was doing all the odds and ends. And then Rick Nelson gave me an opportunity to learn IT staffing, and so him and I created a business on the side and got certified as a DVBE, which is a Disabled Veteran Business Enterprise in the state of California. And so we started that entity, and that led us to some contracts working with Microsoft and with some other UP, helping service members transition out of the military. And so that was the first business we started. It was sort of a consulting type of deal, there for a few years, and then kind of parted ways. And then my next business I started was an industrial supply business, also selling stuff to the government, utilizing the disabled veteran business certifications, both with the federal and state entities, which Tag and I have talked about several times. And, you know, you want to talk about entrepreneurship and stick with itness, right? I think that's what we're all looking here to do. And I think that's why service members make good entrepreneurs at the end of the day is, you know, we adapt and overcome. And, you know, things always change in business. And I think that's what makes us great. So my first businesses were hard, all of them.
All right, Scott.
Okay, well, 9/11, we all remember that. 2001. I was waking up in a parking lot in Calaveras County because I got deployed on a strike team the night before. Strike teams are where fire departments take 22 people, put them in fire engines, and send them to those big fires. And so, being part of that, I woke up, found out, oh, the towers, you know, were under attack. So, on that strike team, since firefighters love going out on strike teams, you know, they're like, you know, Marines with a purpose. And so they're a lot of fun. Plus the overtime is pretty good. So someone encouraged me. I said, boy, I really like this. They go, you ought to buy a water truck. I go, really? They go, oh yeah, become a private contractor. And I go, great. So some of the things I learned in the military sometimes work against me in a way that it makes me, well, I'm still like this. There's nothing I can't do. Maybe not as good as you, but I can still do it. I don't know how to do shorthand. Give me a few minutes, I'll do something. But it gives you confidence. So I jumped right in. I bought a water truck, and I had no idea about licensing and all these other things. And turns out that disabled veteran business enterprises, DVBEs, have a lock on the business because California at the time had to give like 5% of their business to them. And they would all wait until fire season and then be available. And they took all the work. And my point behind that is we didn't really get a lot of funding out of it. I mean, we did enough to keep the doors open, but the opportunity, it was one of those things where it was an opportunity to do, you know, public service on a private scale, but I learned a lot about sole proprietorships and how to use TurboTax. So I had to force myself into learning some very fundamental things about running a business that I had no idea, and we eventually sold it, but that was my first business.
All right, Tag.
All right, first business. I think what Marcus said about stick-to-itiveness would probably be my contribution to this conversation. My first company was years after the Navy. But American River Medical is 16 years old now. We are a veteran-owned business and have a few different various certifications, but we have not leveraged that to the extent that we could. I pursued the disabled thing at one point in time where they told me I was not, but I've been told to pursue that again. Like even if you get 0%, it could be, you know, worth something. So I've been more focused on my current company, my new company, as opposed to leveraging those sales. But I do know I was on the board for Veteran Business Outreach Center, and I know that there's so many resources out there for entrepreneurs and businesses now with veteran backgrounds, such as I know Marcus has a few.
So what inspired you to start your own business?
I don't really know if that's related to my time in the Navy.
It doesn't matter. Why did you start your own business?
I was a medical card salesman. I loved the job. I went to every department in the hospital and made friends with everybody and decided I was never leaving that industry. But after a short amount of time, nurses, politely let me know I was part of the problem. So no matter what card I would sell them, they're like, man, we just don't like these things. These cords are a real pain. And so that was a recurring problem. And I wanted to stay in the niche I was doing, but not be a part of the problem. I listened to that and I said, how could we improve this? And then I saw a rail on every wall of every hospital I would talk to nurses about and say, well, what's this rail and wall protection? What's it doing? And could it be doing more, perhaps charging cards? So that's kind of how I got into my first business. But the American River Medical, I would say, as opposed to a sales rep for another company, I could only offer one product. And I wanted to be able to offer the customer whatever they wanted. So, there was a few things there. Very proud of that company I worked for, but ultimately starting my own company allowed me to serve the customer first and foremost. That would be the reason.
So I'm going to diverge a little bit and maybe focus on Marcus. So in your organization, what are some of the challenges that you saw, challenges that you saw from people transitioning from the military to civilian life, and what's the general advice that you would give to that?
I think you kind of were talking about earlier, service members tend to talk about themselves in this holistic way. I led 10,000 troops, and most companies are less than like 500 employees. So you're talking to an HR person saying 10,000 people, that doesn't compute, right? And so service members oftentimes do not know how to talk about themselves appropriately, do not know how to sell their skills and what they can do to affect business. And I think that is the big miss, and the reason why our program, I think, is doing as well as it's doing and helping service members out, is that we are helping them understand that they're going to get out of the military. So the military no longer matters, right? What you did matters, yes, but how you talk about what you're going to do next is what people want to know. And I think that if you are a generalist, right? And I think sometimes you mentioned you had to go get your degree in order to put yourself into a line to find the right job for yourself. You have to be able to speak about what it is that you are good at, right? What your expertise is in. Most people are not going to go hire the generalist unless they're going to go build a house and they need to have subcontractors. They want to have somebody that can come in and affect their bottom line, right? And that's what most business owners and business people care about, is either making money or saving money. And if you can't go into a hiring conversation with the know-how of how you interpret that for each company, then you're probably not going to be a benefactor or a beneficiary to the organization. And so we do things like teach them how to talk about what they did in the military that computes with a hiring manager's way of speaking about things. We've done things even to build technology. So we've built an entire resume builder for service members where we've correlated military terminology with civilian terminology and allow them to pick their job highlights and have it spell it out for them and then download a resume. Because even formatting a resume, what is a resume supposed to look like? Do I want a federal resume? Do I want a civilian resume? And so ultimately, there are a lot of things that service members struggle with when they get out. I think confidence is maybe the number one thing. So if we can help them understand that they are not out there doing it alone, then they're not the first person to walk through their boots and do this by themselves. I think that eliminates a lot of the anxiety that people get when they get out, and then they ultimately lead to better outcomes. It leads to them being able to negotiate a salary, right? These folks aren't taught how to ask for a raise, negotiate a salary, tell them how great you are and why you're going to benefit their company. Service members are used to standing in line, being told when and where and go and how to do it. And if you can change your mindset a little bit and say, hey, here is what I can do to make your business succeed, save money, make money, then that is a great way to talk about yourself and a great way to put yourself in a position to win and get the notification and the right people to talk to you about what you're good at.
All right, thanks, Marcus. It's a great answer. And let's start with tag. And then so we go this way, but the question I'm going to have is, what lessons have you learned in the military that you're able to apply to your business?
Yeah, that's a book, right? That's almost everything.
Right?
Yeah, that is a book. So many lessons I would omit arrive on time since I came late today. So, but normally that would be at the top, arrive on time, right? Show up.
You got to pass on that though.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many, but I would talk about team and togetherness. And for me, and one of my, I think one of my attributes is empathy and compassion for others. Being able to, put myself in somebody else's shoes or try to understand. And that became very apparent to me. I'll use a little quick story, but we're 40 feet below the water line in a 700-foot long helicopter carrier. So if you could imagine seeing one of those big ships in port, we're 40 feet below the keel line where the water is, down in the engine room, which is a 4-story main space. And we had a lot of folks down there in the pit, in the bilge, and there'd be lots of fighting going on, especially at sea. Nobody likes being at sea. And I used to always be the guy going, can't we all just get along? Can't we all? And I'd say, hey, you know what? We all volunteered to be here. And someone looked at me and said, Neil, who told you we volunteered to be here? And I went, well, we did it. And that's when I first learned that on the East Coast and in other areas, magistrates or court judges said you could either go to jail or you could go to the Navy. And here I was, side by side working with all these guys that did not want to be there. But I think that they called me Disneyland Neil because I was from California, saying you see things in Disneyland, like we're all friends. And but I would say that was something that I brought into the Navy and something I brought out of it. I think being team and learning how to work together and see other people's differences and find strengths. Even some people don't want you to see their strengths, but they're still there. So I think just learning to relate and be a part of a team and something greater than myself. That's the biggest privilege. Is I'm a sailor, right? I'm a Navy guy that really took these guys, right? Marines, Army, Marines, both of them. We took these guys to do all the real fighting. I mean, we're just their transportation, like the movies say. But I'm a part of that, and I don't know how many years these guys both served and officers. I'm enlisted, but I'm a part of that. So the greatest thing for me about being a part of the military is I get to be sitting on this stage next to these heroes and say, I was a part of something greater than myself, and I got to see the world doing it. So
what did we learn? Is that what it is?
Yeah. What did you learn that you could apply to you're applying to your business now?
Okay. So adapt, overcome, improvise, those sort of things do more, have done more for me than anything else. One of the things that in the fire service, one of the things that I had seen is firefighters, when there's something on fire, they don't quit. Marines, Navy, Army, military are the same way, to the point where it's almost, at your own peril, right? You might get winded, but you catch your second breath, but you never stop, you never quit, you never give up. So, and that's when it comes to an